Hi, Dylan from IPD. Today we're going to talk about converting your vintage Volvo over from points ignition to a breakerless ignition. Points were a fine technology back in the 1940s, but we've come a long way since then. Points are used to trigger the spark. There is a oblong-shaped lobe along the shaft of the distributor that opens and shuts a contact breaker. You essentially need to turn the spark off between points where the rotor is spinning underneath the distributor cap, because otherwise it'll cause arcing and all kinds of weird things too. So the points are used to turn the spark off between swipes from one point of the distributor cap to the next. And it uses physical contact to do this, and because of that it requires rather consistent adjustment, and they require replacement from time to time. Points that are out of adjustment will cause inconsistent idle, inconsistent spark, and worst case scenario can leave you stuck on the side of the road. These breakerless ignition kits bring this into the 21st century, require no adjustment, and give you a perfectly smooth idle and perfectly smooth spark as well. Let's take a look at the components used in these Pertronix kits. This is one of the boxes for one of our Pertronix kits that are available. We have these available for most of the distributors that were used in the B18, B20 engines, although we don't have them for every one. You'll need to check the model number of your distributor and find out whether or not it is a cast iron or an aluminum base. We have a distributor here to give you an idea of where the model number will be. This is an aluminum-based distributor, and the model number is etched right here along the side. Some of the cast iron ones often have a tag that's riveted to the side of the distributor. You'll need to know your model number before you give us a call. Other components. This is the actual brain box. As you can see, it's actually quite small. It fits in place where the points originally sat, underneath the distributor cap. This magnet goes on the top of the shaft that comes out of the distributor and sits underneath the rotor. We've also got a mounting bracket here that holds the Pertronix kit in place where the points sat. And you'll have various bits of mounting hardware and screws as well. Let's take a look. The first step is to remove the distributor cap, which is held on with clips. This is something you've probably done several times during your time of owning the Volvo. And you can see here we've got a distributor rotor and the points installed. We'll remove the rotor here. And then removing the points will be a simple matter of undoing the screws that hold it in place. The next step is removing the wire that ran from the points previously. And that goes there. Now at this point you may decide to remove the distributor from the car to do install. You don't necessarily need to do that, but it can make it quite a bit simpler. On most of these cars it's a 7/16 nut that you loosen right here. You'll see it at the base of the distributor. And once you get it loose, this is also how you set timing. You'll see the distributor will rotate freely. Once you get it loose enough, the distributor will lift out just like so. I want to take a moment to show you what the points actually do. If you can imagine, the distributor rotor is spinning around, and you can see these points. Between spins, the points lift off and then they make contact with the breaker there. And so as it spins around at much greater speed than this obviously, but you can see the points move up and down. And this shows you why this is a wear component, where the physical contact is made. Over time these need to be adjusted, and you don't have to do that with the breakerless conversion kits. With the distributor removed from the car, it'll be easier to show you the installation process. You don't necessarily need to remove the distributor from the vehicle, but it may make it a little bit easier for you. You're going to have to set the timing anyways after you do this. As you can see, we've removed the points from this distributor. It's totally empty. We've got the rotor off, we've got the points out of the way. First thing you'll need to do is get the sleeve. This is the magnetic sleeve, and you'll notice the bottom part is bigger than the top part. This will slide over the shaft that sticks out of the distributor, and you'll notice the shaft has square sides to it, and there are corresponding square sides inside of the sleeve. So you'll slide that on until you can kind of rotate it until it goes down all the way, just like that. The next step is to find the base mounting bracket, which is this one here for this particular kit. It's held in with a screw. Now, one thing to remember is that each one of these kits secures to the distributor a little bit differently. Some of them use screws like this, some of them use one screw, some of them use two screws. So depending upon which distributor you have, it'll secure a little bit differently. When you put the screw in, you won't tighten it down quite all the way, so you'll still have a little bit of movement for this bracket, and you'll want to center it just a little bit so that the Pertronix kit can mount without making physical contact with the magnet. It looks about right. We'll go ahead and tighten this down. Once that screw is secure, we'll get our spacer bracket here, which is the same shape as the base bracket. And that lifts the Pertronix unit up so it makes correct contact with the signal sent from the magnet. And finally, we'll have the actual Pertronix unit, which will sit right here. And one thing to note about this is this oblong opening here at the top of the Pertronix unit. This allows you to have some adjustment when you install the unit. With that adjustment, you'll see here that I can move it forward or backwards against the magnet. Some of these Pertronix kits come with an actual little spacer. This is difficult to see, I'm sure, but it's about 20 thousandths, a little plastic spacer. You put it between the magnets and the Pertronix unit, and that gives you the actual clearance that you'll need to safely run your Pertronix. With that in place, there are two small bolts that will attach here and here, and you tighten those down. And then the next step is doing the wiring. We've got the Pertronix unit physically installed into the distributor. We've checked our clearance, and it is correct between the magnet and the brain box here. The next step is doing the wiring. Now, the leads that come with the Pertronix units often are not going to be long enough to work on the application for your Volvo. So in this case here, we're going to have to clip these leads and extend them. And any set of wire cutters will do. Once we have the leads clipped, the next step is to feed the wire through the opening where the points wire originally ran. These Pertronix units often have a grommet that goes in place of this large opening here, and you'll need to feed that through. It can be a bit challenging. It's a bit of a tight fit. Silicone lubricant spray makes this a lot easier, but if you don't have it, you'll be able to get it with a little bit of patience. One tip I'll give you for this particular kit is that this grommet does come off of here, and it's a lot easier to install this without the wires running through it, and then feed the wires in afterwards. We're now ready to reinstall the distributor that has the breakerless Pertronix in it. Now, after you do this, you will need to reset the timing on your motor. And you can do that by following the instructions in your service manual. It's no different than it would be had you installed points back onto here. Let's talk about hooking up these wires. There's a couple of things you'll need to be aware of when you hook up the breakerless ignition kit. On 544, 122, and 1800 models that still have an armored sleeve that runs from the original coil to the back of the ignition switch, you will need to use one of our diode wire kits to hook this up properly. We have more details about that in another video. If you have a 140 or a later model 1800, or if you're running an aftermarket coil, it's a simple connection. The black wire from the Pertronix kit goes to the negative side of the coil, and the red wire from the Pertronix kit goes to the positive side of the coil. With this Pertronix kit installed, I will now have a much more consistent idle across the board. I'll have a better spark as well, and I'll have peace of mind not having to worry about my points being out of adjustment when I take my car on a trip somewhere. These Pertronix kits are available in stock. If you have any questions about them, give us a call at 800-444-6473.